evening. I'm Tony Hayes, president of Regis College. I want to welcome the Sisters of St. Joseph of Boston and our friends and colleagues and students from the colleges of the Sisters of St. Joseph across the country who have joined in this webinar. Leading in the footsteps of our founders. We are thrilled to be the first institution within our ACSSJ network to host a webinar. I know our panelists had an incredible experience on their pilgrimage to Le Puy, and we will learn more about their journeys into the past and how it will impact their leadership in the future. Thank you all for being with us. We welcome you from around the country. And now I would like to introduce Dr. Mary Lou Jackson, my assistant for mission, who will facilitate the panel discussion. Welcome and thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Good evening.
Good evening.
And welcome to the Sisters of St. Joseph of Boston, both here and participating on Zoom, our student leaders who are also here, and certainly our friends across the country who are participating through the Association of Colleges of the Sisters of St. Joseph. How exciting to have this network and how exciting to have this webinar taking place tonight. So, okay, full disclosure here. Although there may be a camera on us, we are not real actors, okay? Make sure you know that. I know it's hard to believe looking at these beautiful young women and certainly suave and sophisticated Dan Leahy over there.
Two beautiful women and him.
And I know I bear an uncanny resemblance to Wolf Blitzer, but I'm not Wolf and this is not the Situation Room. So please bear with us as we proceed. But I can tell you who we are, really. We are 4 members of the Regis community, 4 proud members of the Regis community, who share a deep passion and love for the Sisters of St. Joseph. We also deeply believe in the Sisters' charism, and we want to do everything in our power to share and move this charism forward in the Regis community. On Thursday, we will celebrate Founders Day at Regis. We have over 800 community members engaging in service throughout Boston and Lawrence, and even across the country with our online students participating, and even in Germany. So that's pretty exciting. We will spend the morning in service, and then in the afternoon we will participate in community dialogues around what is community, and what does it mean to be in community influenced and inspired by the Sisters of St. Joseph. So this webinar is the first in a series called Leading in the Footsteps of Our Founders. And this particular webinar is entitled, Who Are We Called to Be? A conversation with 3 of our own pilgrims who went back on a pilgrimage to Le Puy and retraced the footsteps of our founding founders. First of all, I do want to thank Martha Malinsky, who is the Executive Director of the Association of Colleges of Sisters of St. Joseph. Martha was instrumental in planning the pilgrimage, which had student representation from all of the colleges in the network. Martha was also instrumental in securing a grant from the C. Charles Jackson Foundation, which has made this webinar series possible. I also want to thank Andrew Mercado, who interns in the ACSSJ office. Andrew has been incredibly helpful and patient in helping us organize this seminar. And now I'd like to introduce our pilgrims, our panelists. We have Megan Bello. Megan is a class of 2020 from Framingham, Massachusetts. She's a biology major. She's a presidential Catholic scholar. She's in the honors program. She's a peer tutor. She's a microbiology lab tech. She's an orientation leader. She's a pride guide. She runs marathons, and she's also has participated in some service trips on campus. So Megan, welcome.
Wow.
Next, I'd like to introduce Ariana McCormick, class of 2020 from Worcester, Mass. Ariana is a double major in communications and criminal justice with a minor in writing. She's also a presidential Catholic scholar. She's a captain of the women's tennis team. She's vice president of Student Government Association. She's in the Regis Honors Program. She's on the Regis Board of Trustees as a student member. She's a peer tutor. She's an orientation leader, and she's editor-in-chief of the Regis Life.
Wow.
Ariana. I'm not sure when these young women sleep, but. And then we have Dan Leahy, who is our director of the Center for Ministry and Service. Dan is in his third year at Regis, working in the Center for Ministry and Service. He lives in Lowell with his wife, Joyce, and has 3 sort of grown children, young adults. Having worked in Catholic higher education for nearly 30 years with the Benedictines and the Jesuits, he describes his immersion into the Sisters of St. Joseph as a breath of fresh air.
It's true.
So with that, I'm going to sit down and write. Okay, can you hear me okay? Great. So we're going to have a few questions to ask our pilgrims, our panelists, about their experiences and reflections on their trip to Le Puy. So I'm going to start with Megan. Megan, would you share with us some of your first impressions of Le Puy?
Yeah, so when we first got there, we've all been pretty tired. So we've been traveling for about 24 hours, and we had taken a 2-hour bus ride to get to Le Puy, so we were all pretty exhausted. But once we came into Le Puy and saw how amazingly beautiful it was, we were all just revitalized and so excited to be there and ready to just really discover everything that Le Puy had to offer.
So can you guys hear me? So when we first got there, I immediately felt at home and at peace with where I was. I was so beyond welcome with our lovely Olga and Eloisa from Le Puy in the center. And I can't even describe the feeling that I felt when I got there. I just felt completely connected to my own culture, but also to my faith and to the school that I love so much.
Right. I think we had similar feelings. We had a very long trip to get to finally arrive in Le Puy. And after having traveled for hours and hours and hours, well, it felt like days and days, to arrive in this beautiful southern French countryside. It was dusk, twilight, the beautiful landscape, which can only be, you have to see a picture in a book or something. It was just amazing. But the sense of peace and tranquility that we felt in this small little town, and knowing that what we were going to see and experience in the next few days. So there's a sense of peace, but there was a sense of excitement as well, that here we are, we finally made it.
So what did you learn about the history of the Sisters of St. Joseph that was most inspiring and moving to you, Ari?
I think what really struck me was the fact that these women, first of all, women, during a time where women weren't able to do any of that type of thing until our lovely Sisters of St. Joseph stepped up to the plate and did it and set the forefront. That's what really connected me to the Sisters of St. Joseph. It made me just want to learn more about who they were and piece together all the history that was there. So when we walked the halls of College Hall, seeing the pictures of all of the Le Puy and all of Lyon and the history, we can piece it all together and bring it back here. So just the fact that we had those women set the forefront for the rest of us, and then now we have men at our college who can also be a part of it, it's even better.
Yeah, going off of what Ariana said, I really feel the same way. It was just so surprising thinking about these women in the 1600s going out and doing something to better the world and not worrying about what people were going to say or how they'd be treated, but doing it for the love of God.
Our tour guides, Sister Joan and Sister Kitty, who were wonderful with us, really made it a point as we walked along to say, the sisters most likely would have walked here. We visited an old chapel. The sisters most likely would have prayed here. And there was that sense of connection, that historical, to be in that place where they were was amazing for me. You don't have to convince me about the potential and power of women. I've been married for 30 years. And I do believe the world would be a better place if more of you were in charge. But to see the history and to hear the history and the ups and the downs, sometimes we package it as, well, it started and it was all great and here we are today. But there were a lot of ups and downs, swings and misses, trials and errors, where the perseverance and the trust in God got them through. But to feel that in that historical sense was amazing.
So we know that you had an opportunity to pray and reflect each day. So could you share with us a little bit about that experience while you were there, and then when you came home, how did it continue?
Yeah, so we reflected at the end of every day, and I think it really helped just kind of sum up everything that we'd experienced that day, because every day we were going from morning till night, so it really helped us remember like everything we'd experienced and every part of God we had experienced throughout the day, and trying to see what God's trying to tell us through the images of Le Puy.
Yeah, we completely just needed to reflect at that point because we were just so involved with what we were doing, and we were so passionate about it too. So it was really important for us to come together every night to do the sharing of the heart, which was just so breathtaking because we really got to get on that emotional level with one another. And we're connecting with students from all over the country, men, women, all over the country that are here to meet us, but also form those connections that we most likely would have never made unless we went on that trip. And I know Meg and I both met one of our really good friends, Thomas. If he's listening, we want to give him a shout out because he was one of the greatest people we could have ever met on that trip. And he just really was someone that we were really passionate about talking the trip with. But like I said, we made those connections and we were able to share these experiences. But coming back from the trip, we were still able to reflect and have that relationship with God, and then continue to make those connections with people here on campus and then abroad.
So in a room full of such wise people and people involved in education, we know that we don't necessarily learn from experiences, but we learn from reflecting on them and being very intentional about making time, carving out time at the end of the day or some part of the day to really be aware of what we're doing as a group, where we've been, and what God is doing in our life. So that reflection was really the questions that we were asked to reflect on, the conversation we had, and then the prayer that we had was really helpful. I feel like here, at home and at work, I run, but to have intentional time set aside for prayer and reflection was like a luxury. It was like being at a spa, a spiritual spa.
So, Ari, how would you describe the transformation that took place within your life?
Wow, how can you describe Le Puy, but also Lyon? I think that definitely it was a trip of a lifetime, and I'm very thankful for it. Thank you so much for everyone who helped. I think it's also a trip where I really found myself again. I went through a lot in the past year, emotionally and personally, so it was really good to not only share it with someone I'm close with, Dan Leahy, but also my best friend of all time, Megan Bubella. So it was a very spiritual and uplifting experience that connected me with God, but also with myself again, which is something that you need in order to not only help yourself, but to help other people around you. So I learned through this transformation to reconnect with God, to learn his message. What is he trying to say to me? What is he trying to have me do? What does he want me to bring back to here on campus? How can I do that with Dan? How can I do that with Meg? How can we bring everyone back here together and form that community? Because the Sisters of St. Joseph did it, so why can't we?
Yeah, and when you're walking through Le Puy, it's impossible to deny God's presence, not just in like Saint Michel or the Notre Dame, the statue of Mary up there, but you can really just feel him all around, and you can obviously see that from the sisters and how powerful they were towards creating such life in such a beautiful place.
And I feel like in terms of transformation, I feel like I came back a new person on this campus just with such a deeper respect and appreciation for the sisters, knowing what so many have been through, what the sacrifices have been. And I think we're always we have this conversation at our table, trying to figure out how can this charism live on in all of us. It's not just the sisters, the professed sisters, the associates, collaborators in ministry and partners, and us as the legacy. How does this live on? So that transformation, I feel so different being at Regis in my third year, having been on that pilgrimage, trying to figure out what's the next step? How can we make this come alive in the life of everybody in this community?
So given that, in what ways have you shared this experience with friends, family members, colleagues?
Yeah, so I mean, we've taken so many photos and like posted so many things, but I mean, really what we wanted to bring back is like the values of the sisters, and that was the most important thing. Like, I mean, everything was so beautiful, but really at the core of everything is the values that we wanted to bring back, and kind of just showing them how we've transformed and how much more of a respect we have now for this great college that we come from and from the sisters who created Regis. Just sharing that is like the biggest thing, I think.
I pretty much told every single person I know or didn't know but passed on the street that I went to Le Puy and that I had the experience of a lifetime. So I could tell you about Le Puy and the trip to the pilgrimage and everything probably 20,000 times a day. But the thing is what am I going to do now that I'm back? That's the question that comes up the most. What are you going to do? So you can say that you're going to do all these things, but how are you going to actually make a change? So we have all these wonderful values, charisms of the Sisters of St. Joseph. But what does that mean? We are able to take those in, reflect, and really, at the end of the day, the best thing is to do something about it. Because there have been things that have happened over the years, and there have been things that have happened to us personally. But what are we going to do about it? How are we going to come together as a community and really reflect on it and make a change, not just for ourselves, but for our future generation?
Yeah, I think Ari and Megan are right on, because the one thing that we can do, that we have control over, is to model the values and model the inspiration of the sisters in the story. That's the only thing that we really have control over. I was nervous a few times about being that guy that came back from vacation and had to tell everybody, didn't want people to run the other way. Hey, did you hear about the pilgrimage? So I try to be careful about it, but there were occasions where speaking to the resident assistants, speaking to the orientation leaders, speaking with the faculty, at our Mass of the Holy Spirit, at Convocation, we've had opportunities to give a point or two or an insight or an example of the meaning of the pilgrimage. But the last thing, too, I think, is helping people to see their story within the story of the sisters. We have a lot of courageous people on this campus. All of our student leaders, they work hard, they're reflective, they fight for things that they believe in, and that's what the sisters did. That's what the early community did. So to help them see their story in light of this other story, and it's not so different, I think the more we can do that, the better off we are.
So Ari, it sounds like you have a different appreciation of Regis in your experience here, now that you have a deeper understanding of the charism of the sisters.
I think I definitely appreciate Regis even more. I felt comfortable the moment I stepped on this campus, and I think that I've stayed here as long as I have, and I've gotten involved because of that. But I think once I came back, I realized that, okay, you're going to fail in life. I know I'm going to fail in life, and that's okay, because at the end of the day, everyone is, and that's what makes us better. And I think this trip really taught me about that, and it taught me that it's okay to not have the best relationship with God, but at the end of the day, He's always going to be there for you. He's always going to tell you that He loves you, and you're going to be able to form those connections and really drive the message, not just now, but for later on in life.
Yeah, and knowing that Regis was created by such strong women has made me feel, as a young woman, a really strong need to be kind of a leader on this campus and to try to guide others to follow these really important values. I know we talk about it all the time, but the dear neighbor, going on service trips, doing things for others, putting your time and effort into others. That's something that is so valuable, and the sisters teach it every day. So,
and I think that Regis being a community that is willing to be honest about who we are and who we want to be. At our recent convocation, we borrowed a theme, impelled by God's inclusive love. And what we tried to do, our team, was to say, here's who we want to be. We're not always perfect. We make mistakes, but it's how we rebound. It's how we respond. It's how we go forward with that inspiration and with those values. That's how we're going to be defined, the kind of community that we want to be. And Regis was open to that. And that not every community would be. So that gave me a lot of hope.
Mm-hmm. So Megan, this webinar series is entitled Leading in the Footsteps of Our Founders. And you've alluded to this a little bit. What are the footprints you would like to leave behind on this campus through your leadership?
I just would like to people to know to get involved in doing things for others, and show them that like being a woman is something that can be so empowering, and is really important to make your leadership known as a woman, so that we can all step forward, because our sisters really were very early feminists, and they really wanted us to have a voice in this world where many people just wanted us to get married and have children. So I think that's really important, is little things like being a leader on campus, doing things for others. Those things are really going to help women in the forefront.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. I think that as women here on this campus, and as being a student leader, I think the most important footstep I want to leave behind is that I'm not the only one that can do this. I want someone else to be able to know that, hey, I could do this. Hey, I could really start a cool club here on campus. I can advocate for something that no one else has stood up for, but Ariana, Megan, Dan, they all stepped in and they all did it. So we can say that we're going to do all these amazing things, but at the end of the day, it's really about how we approach them and how we show people that we are going to do them, that we care, that we are here for them. And like Megan said, I want to be one of those female leaders, like our wonderful sisters of St. Joseph, who stepped up at a time when they were shut down for doing it. That's something I want to be remembered for.
Right, and if I think about a footprint, I think about a collective footprint from our office and the Center for Ministry and Service and the team that we have there. And I think we work hard every day to make sure that everybody that we encounter, whether they come into our center or we encounter them in the dining hall, on the athletic field, wherever we see them, that they know that they're valued, that they're sacred, that they have dignity, and that they are loved unconditionally by God. And that's something that would be a great footprint to leave behind in our work.
Thank you. Well, we would love to open this up to our audience, both on Zoom land as well as here in the Regis campus. If you have any questions at all for our panelists, we'd love to give you the opportunity to ask the question, and they will certainly answer the question. Or if you've had an experience at Le Puy, we'd love to hear about that too. Yes, Mackenzie.
I guess they already kind of answered my question, but to the two students speaking about their experience at Le Puy, what have you guys done to really bring back your experience with sisters to Regis again?
So the question was, what have you done to bring the experience back to Regis? Is that?
Yes, I heard the answers talk.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, so that's a great question. So myself and Megan, first of all, we've been telling people about it, just like here and there, but we don't want to be like annoying about it at the same time, like Dan brought up. So we try to like sneak it into conversations every once in a while. But with our involvement on a lot of different clubs, organizations, different leadership roles here, we want to tell people about where the sisters came from. And we would love to be able to like share our pictures with the students and like go into FYS classes, so the first year seminar classes. That's like one of our goals, is to go in and just show them different like pictures and different experiences that we had, and have them get involved with understanding what a pilgrimage is, because anyone can go on pilgrimage, and it doesn't have to be necessarily to Le Puy, but to other wonderful places here, and have them get connected and involved in Center for Ministry and Service.
Yes.
And also just going off what Ariana said, we're both very involved on campus. So, I mean, we're always like trying to find like some new way to be involved and like try to get a voice in any way we can on campus. So I think that's really helping, and we're slowly being able to transition into bringing the values to life at Regis.
Other questions? Annabella?
What is one takeaway from your experience that you think could be applied to our community in a concrete way?
So the question was, what is one takeaway that you can
Sort of apply to our
apply to the community?
I think just being open to new opportunities and trying new things, and trying to be a leader and trying to help others. There's so many, honestly, you could go on for so long about it. There's so many values that you could bring back from this trip to involve on our campus.
I think one thing I would definitely bring back is the sense of communication and advocation, because here on campus, we need student leaders to really speak up and talk about what the student body needs and wants. And I think going to Le Puy showed me that it's okay to speak up and it's okay to ask for help and everything. But at the same time, I also think it's important to be able to communicate with other people on this campus, not just with students, but with faculty and staff. So really the essence here is that we need to communicate and advocate for those who do not necessarily have that voice.
And probably too, just kind of mentioned it before, but about helping people to know their own stories and to know that we're not alone. We don't have to be perfect. We're better in community, and we're better when we open ourselves up to something greater than ourselves. We call that the spirituality. And however we find that, we always say one mountain, many paths, but to encourage each other to look beyond us together as a community, and we'll always be stronger.
Other questions or comments? Yes.
I've been to Le Puy a few times, and I just feel that you have captured the soul of what Le Puy is. And I thank you, and I think you should go on tour. You know, I think you've done it as young people. We can, as sisters, we can talk about it and get as excited as you are, but I think you are a different kind of a voice, a very positive voice. Ian, too. I hope this webinar, or whatever we're calling it,
Zoominar.
Zoominar, is going to be archived somewhere on that
It is.
website, because
It
lots
is.
of people need to hear what you say.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, thank
So-
you.
Thank you.
So Sister Joanne said that these students have captured the soul of Le Puy, and they've done a beautiful job doing that. So, and you have, you really have.
Thank you.
Yes.
I love that you talked about sharing the state of the heart
Mhm.
today. And I'm wondering what you think about the possibility of introducing that kind of practice on campus.
I think that's an excellent idea. I wish we did it a little bit more. But so as Presidential Catholic Scholars, recently we've been meeting together like a lot more frequently. So we've been meeting to get to know the incoming class that just came in, but also like students who are already Presidential Catholic Scholars, like myself and Megan. So at one of our meetings recently, we actually did it. So it was a really good practice to be able to get the student leaders here on campus to understand what sharing of the heart is and what it entails, and give them the experience and the practice to be able to do it. So our goal would be to move it forward into different practices, different leadership roles, activities, and clubs and organizations in the future.
Yeah, and sharing of the heart is definitely unlike any reflection I've really ever done. It really made me in touch with like my emotions and my connection to God. I definitely had like definitely a tough time, like trying to talk about that in front of the group. But it was really good to get those things and talk about them, talk about what I was feeling and the way that God was trying to connect with me through the trip.
We've also incorporated, even though we've done similar things in the Center for Ministry and Service, in all of our service, whether it's local, national, or international, we have reflection, but we started to be more intentional about adopting the sisters' practices and calling that what it is. And Dean Horner in the Center in Student Affairs has also been encouraging the directors to do more sharing of the heart. We've done that at farewell parties for people when we share an experience of that person, but he's having us do that at practice as directors now to get more in touch with that as well.
Yes, sister.
What was your favorite part of the pilgrimage? And you went to Lyon, but you said
Right. So the question was, what was their favorite part of the experience? And they did also go to Lyon, so we'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, my favorite part of the trip was definitely hiking about 10 miles on the Camino with both of them and one of our other leaders on the trip. It was just incredible to see. And right when we were about to turn around, there's a huge cross right there, planted in the ground, and it was just so beautiful. I've never seen anything like it in my entire life, really. And to talk about Lyon a little bit, we did go to the grave of Mother Fonfont, and we also saw her old bedroom, and that really reminded us of how important these sisters were and how it was all the sisters' efforts combined, and not just one or a few in Le Puy, but also her efforts really made a huge impact on us today as well.
I completely agree with Megan. I wish we went to Lyon a little bit more, just so I could have got a sense of being able to experience it and get accustomed to everything, because it's a big city compared to Le Puy. It's very big. But my favorite part of the pilgrimage definitely was when we walked to the top of Saint Michel. And when I got up there, I could see all of Le Puy, all of the rooftops, everything. And I just took one big gulp of air and I was like, wow, this is breathtaking. People civilized, established where they were that many years ago, and it's still here. And then I was like, wait, I feel God's presence as well. This is a wonderful experience. And we had a wonderful moment inside the chapel, just holding each other's hands and praying and welcome everyone there. And then one of our sisters actually renewed her vows there in front of us. So that was just completely powerful, and just, it was so emotional too. We all cried. It was just, and at the end of the day, we were like, oh my gosh, it was just so beautiful. And Megan and I actually lit a candle inside the chapel for our grandfathers. So that was something that I'll always remember that special moment. But like I said earlier, Lyon was just a very big city, and I really wish we got to experience a little bit more of it. But like Megan said, we got to go to the grave of Mother Fonfont, go inside of her bedroom and everything. And once we were there, I felt a real presence of her, which was something that I really admired, because she's the one who led these women to leave and to really start that change and to really get them involved and want to come to America and establish something that no other woman or no really anyone that did at that time. And she started the education forefront. She started everything for advocation for all kinds of people. And that's something I truly admired. And I mean, if you guys want to go back to Lyon, we can all go together. More than happy to go, show you guys around, everything.
All right. Well, we actually have a few questions from our participants on Zoom, so I'm going to ask those questions for them. First question is, how do you feel the charism and the mission of the Sisters of St. Joseph impacts your life today at Regis?
I think that the mission and the charisms of the Sisters of St. Joseph is something I definitely find extremely important and a part of who I am here as a student on campus. I am someone who wants to advocate for someone who necessarily is too shy to stand up for themselves or really just ask those questions, because I am an upperclassman, so I'm not afraid to ask administration, hey, like we need this right now, like please help us. But also just being that helping hand for someone, just being there for them, telling them that I care about them, that I love them, and that they are important. And I think that being a part of this neighborhood community, we can really work on that together.
Yeah, and the sisters have really taught me through charism that to really not back down and to think about in the 1600s, if they had backed down, like where would we all be today? Really thinking about that. That's something that's become really important to me. So just trying to be really strong and trying to get through really tough times and working hard is something that I've really learned from this journey.
I think the way in which the pilgrimage has deepened my experience of the charism has given me a little bit more courage to hold our community lovingly accountable in a good way. We desire to be better, and it's okay to say we need to do better, and this is not good or this is not good, because we can do better. And that's what the early community did. So I think that experience gave me that courage to, if they can do it, we can try to do it.
Okay, and I'm going to ask one last question, and that is, what does learning about the sisters' past and the founding of the order mean for how you understand the future of the Sisters of St. Joseph?
That's a question.
Yeah. So it's really made me understand that these women are very resilient, and so understanding how they got through such tough times, worked hard, really showed me that that's how we're going to keep surviving and keep thriving in our communities.
I think that's a wonderful question, and that it really made me think and process it a little bit more in my head. But what I would like to say is that understanding the history of the Sisters of St. Joseph gives us an understanding of what it was to live during that time period. And okay, so everything might not be perfect in our society right now, but everything wasn't so perfect back then for them. So where can we go? How can we lead this together? And we don't necessarily have to be a sister, a priest. We can be a common friend. We can be a neighbor. We can just say hello to someone and just try to brighten their day a little bit like that, and try to help advocate for those who really just don't necessarily have the means to advocate for themselves. And I think as a future and as a community, we can do that together.
When I said in the introductory, the bio that Mary Lou read about being a breath of fresh air, what I meant by that was I pick up that the way the sisters understand the Holy Spirit, for me, has been a refreshing way than the way I've seen and experienced the men to do it. Not better, not worse, but just a different kind of relationship. So I think going forward, we know that probably vocations to religious life are not going to suddenly blossom in the next decade or so. But maybe it means that the Spirit's inviting us to really understand who we are as we work together, and that we take that inspiration and that charism, and that we continue to work together. So it's not we just take the sisters and put them up on the pedestal, and we take the values out of the trophy closet, but that we all work on this together. And we're all together. We affirm each other's gifts and talents, and we affirm the uniqueness of the way in which we contribute to the mission, because we all can and we all should.
That sounds like a nice way to wrap this up. I want to thank all of you who are participating on Zoom, as well as those in the audience here at Regis. We have reflection questions for our student leaders. For those on Zoom, you'll find them at a link. For our students here on campus, they're actually right here on the tables. We would love for you to look at those questions or reflect upon your own leadership and how you can impact the Regis community and the other Sisters of St. Joseph's colleges. Finally, I think these panelists deserve a really big round of applause for what they've done. Yes. I think this reaction proves that you really have impressed us tremendously with your reflections, your experiences, your faith in God, and your faith in the sisters. So thank you. Thank you so very much. Thank you to everybody, and God bless.
Great to be with you. Good work.